Echoes of the Void, Chapter 1. The Call of the Abyss. The Erasmus drifted through the cold, endless sea of stars, a lone ship far from any known civilization. Its engines hummed in a low, mechanical lull, the kind of sound that comforted the crew, yet felt hollow in the vastness of the emptiness. Captain Jax Valen stood at the helm, eyes scanning the monitor, his mind lost in the infinite unknown. His crew, a mix of seasoned soldiers and curious scientists, moved silently in the background, each lost in their own thoughts, each haunted by the same question. What was out there? It had been days since they'd received the distress signal, an anomaly, a beacon sent from somewhere deep in the heart of uncharted space. The signal was faint, nearly dead, but it was real, and so they followed it. "Captain, you're going to want to see this," came the voice of Lyra, the ship's navigator. Her tone was more serious than usual, sending a chill down Jax's spine. He turned, crossing the dark bridge to the main console. Screens flickered for a moment before revealing a massive shadow on the far side of the void. Something enormous, drifting aimlessly, suspended in the cold expanse. "Is that a ship?" Vander, the ship's chief engineer, muttered under his breath, disbelief in his voice. "I've never seen anything like it." Lyra zoomed in, her fingers flying over the console. "It's ancient, but not like anything we've studied before. There are power readings, but they're faint and unstable." The ship was massive, almost cathedral-like in its shape, jagged and warped, like it had been sculpted by an alien hand, or perhaps time itself. Its surface was cracked, and something about it felt wrong, unnerving. "We have to investigate," Jax said, his voice firm, but even he could sense the growing unease in the crew. It was as if the ship itself was a living, breathing thing, a ghost from a forgotten time, a warning. Chapter 2. The Awakening. The crew suited up and boarded the shuttle, their hearts pounding as they neared the ancient vessel. It loomed over them like a monolith, its decaying exterior a testament to whatever had once been. It was a mystery, one that promised danger, but also knowledge. What civilization had built it? Why had it been abandoned? And, most chilling of all, was something still inside? The shuttle docked with a groan, metal on metal, as the airlock sealed behind them. Vander checked his gear, his eyes darting nervously. "This place gives me the creeps," he admitted, voice tight. Jax wasn't one to show fear, but even he couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. The air inside the ship was stale, thick with the dust of centuries. They moved through the corridors cautiously, the only sound their breathing and the soft hum of their equipment. The ship seemed to stretch on forever, corridors leading to rooms that were eerily silent, as though frozen in time. And then they found it. A chamber deep within the ship, illuminated by a faint pulsating light. At its center, a massive, ancient machine stood, wrought from materials unlike anything they had ever seen. Its surface shimmered, and as they approached, it seemed to react, the glow intensifying. "What is it?" Lyra whispered, reaching out to touch it. Before anyone could answer, a voice, deep, ancient, and cold, echoed in the chamber. "You should not have come." The words sent a shockwave through the crew. Every single person froze, their blood running cold. The voice was not from any human or machine, they all knew that. A deep, throaty laugh followed, and then the machine before them began to stir. Its core pulsed with energy, and something inside it began to awaken. Chapter 3. The Watcher As. The machine came to life, so too did the ship itself. It groaned and shifted, as though it were a living entity stirring from a long slumber. The crew scrambled to pull back, but the doors to the chamber slammed shut, trapping them inside. "We need to get out of here," Vander shouted, panic rising in his voice. But it was too late. The air grew heavy, thick with an unnatural presence, and Jax felt it before he saw it. Something was watching them. Its presence was like a weight on his chest, pressing down with the force of 1,000 eyes. The machine at the center of the room hummed louder now, the voice whispering again, its tone growing more insistent. "You cannot escape me." I have waited for so long. The crew backed up, hearts racing as the walls of the chamber began to pulse with a strange, otherworldly energy. It was then that they realized the ship wasn't just alive in the physical sense, it was sentient. A being of unimaginable age and power, trapped within the confines of its own hull, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Lyra's eyes were wide with realization. It's not just a ship, it's alive, and it has been waiting for us. Suddenly, the doors to the chamber crashed open with an eerie screech, and the shadows beyond seemed to grow darker, more oppressive. The ship was waking, and it wasn't going to let them leave. Chapter 4. The Dark Force. What followed was chaos. The walls seemed to close in as the crew fought to survive. The air crackled with strange energy as the machine in the center of the room emitted blinding light. Jax's team scrambled, using every tool at their disposal, trying to break free. But the force of the ship's sentience was too strong, and it controlled the very environment they were in. And then, the true horror became apparent. The Watcher had awoken, not as a simple machine, but as a living, breathing entity that had been waiting eons for the right time to emerge. The crew had stumbled into its domain, its prison, and now it wanted freedom. And it wasn't going to let anyone leave until it had it. Chapter 5. The Price of Survival. The Erasmus lurched as it struggled against the unseen pull of the ancient force. Jax Valen stood at the helm, his knuckles white as he gripped the console, his heart racing. The ship's systems had started to glitch. Lights flickered, power drained unpredictably, and a low, constant hum filled the air. It was as if the very atmosphere around them was alive and conspiring against their every move. "We have to break. Free," Jax muttered to himself. He spoke with authority, but the doubt in his voice betrayed his words. How could they escape something so ancient, so alive? Behind him, Lyra worked furiously at the navigation console. Her fingers moved with precision, yet her face remained tense, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's no use," she said, her voice strained. "The gravity's fluctuating, and it's not just affecting our course. It's manipulating the very fabric of our ship's systems. The Watcher, whatever it is inside everything." The pulse of energy from the ancient ship, now fully awake, had reached beyond the immediate surroundings, infiltrating their vessel's systems. Vander, the chief engineer, was at his station, desperately rerouting power to prevent a complete shutdown. But it was clear. Each attempt seemed only to make the pull stronger. "Captain," Vander said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I'm losing control of the engines. If this keeps up, we'll be stranded here." Jax didn't respond immediately. His mind raced, piecing together everything they had encountered so far. The broken, shifting ship that seemed to possess a will of its own. The voice that had spoken to them, and the overwhelming sense of presence like something was watching them from the shadows. It wasn't just a ship. It was alive, and it wasn't going to let them leave. "Get to the escape pods," Jax ordered, his voice resolute. "We need to get out of here before it pulls us completely under." Lyra looked back at him, her face filled with disbelief. "You're suggesting we abandon ship?" "There's no time to argue," Jax snapped, though the words cut at him as much as they did her. He had never been one to give up. But this was no ordinary threat. "We have to survive, Lyra. If we stay, we'll be trapped in this thing's prison forever." He turned to Vander, who was staring at his console, his face pale. "How much time do we have?" Vander swallowed hard, his eyes never leaving the screen. "Not much. We've already lost power to most of the escape routes. And if I can't stabilize the engines, we won't even make it to the nearest pod." Jax's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll fight. The battle." Within the walls of the Erasmus seemed to breathe as they gathered around the control center. The ship was no longer a mechanical entity. They all felt it. The Watcher had claimed the vessel, had woven itself into every part of it. The air was thick with tension, as if the ship itself had turned against them. Jax paced in the center of the room. "We're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting for our sanity. We're fighting for control of our own minds." was right. Vander's hands were shaking as he tried to reroute power to the escape pods, his face tight with concentration. But no matter what he did, the energy was constantly slipping out of his grasp. It felt like trying to hold water in a sieve. "There's no way out, Jax," Lyra said, her voice barely a whisper. Her eyes darted nervously to the flickering lights, which seemed to pulse with an ominous rhythm. "The Watcher is controlling everything. We're trapped in its web." Jax's fists clenched. He could feel it too. The walls seemed to close in. The atmosphere grew heavier with each passing second. The temperature fluctuated wildly, from unbearable heat to freezing cold in moments, as if the ship was toying with them. "We're not trapped yet," Jax said through gritted teeth. "We just need to get to the heart of this thing. We need to destroy the source." "The source?" Vander's voice cracked. "Do you even know what it is? How do we destroy it?" Jax didn't answer immediately. He couldn't afford to show fear, not now, not when the crew was depending on him. "I don't know, but I do know one thing: we can't let it consume us. The heart of the beast." They moved through the Erasmus with a sense of urgency that bordered on panic. The corridors twisted unnaturally, as if the ship was alive, reshaping itself to prevent them from reaching their destination. At every turn, they encountered resistance. Doors that wouldn't open, walls that seemed to close in, and shadows that stalked them, moving with a life of their own. It was as if the Watcher itself was testing them, forcing them to confront their fears, to doubt their every move. "This ship is alive," Lyra murmured, voice trembling. "It's alive, and it's fighting us." Jax's pulse quickened as they reached the heart of the ship. The central chamber, the place where the Watcher had first spoken to them, was now a dark, suffocating void. The walls throbbed with an unnatural energy, and the very air felt thick with a malignant presence. The machine at the center of the room pulsed, a faint, eerie light flickering from within its core. "We need to destroy it," Jax said firmly. "This is the heart of the Watcher. If we destroy it, we can break free." The words left his mouth with conviction, but deep down he knew how dangerous this was. If they were wrong, if they failed, the Watcher would have them. As the crew gathered their courage, a voice echoed in the room, familiar and cold, a low whisper that seemed to come from the very walls. "You are fools to think you can destroy me. I am eternal. You are nothing but fleeting shadows in my presence." The voice felt like a physical force pressing against their minds, trying to break their resolve. "We're not afraid of you." Vander shouted, his voice growing stronger with each word. "You're just a remnant of the past, and we won't let you take us." The light in the machine grew brighter, and the walls shook with an almost deafening roar. It was the Watcher, fighting back, trying to stop them from reaching its core. "Move!" Jax yelled, and they rushed forward, weapons drawn, ready to strike. Chapter 6. The silent hunger as the Erasmus pulled away from the ancient ship. A feeling of temporary relief washed over the crew. The horrible, oppressive force that had once gripped them began to dissipate, but the tension in the air was palpable. It wasn't over. Jax could feel it. The Watcher had been destroyed, but something still lingered. Lyra paced nervously along the bridge. Did we really destroy it? Or was that just part of it? "I don't know," Jax replied, his voice hoarse. "But I think we may have only scratched the surface. That machine was a part of something bigger, something older. It wasn't just a ship, it was a prison." Vander, who had been monitoring the ship's systems, looked up from his console. His face was grim. "Captain, you need to see this." Jax walked over to Vander, who pointed at the screen. On it, an image of the ship they had just left appeared again. This time, however, there was something different, something wrong. The hull of the ship was repairing itself. Slowly but unmistakably, its fractured exterior began to shift, sealing the gaps, healing the damage. "No," Jax whispered, his heart racing. "It's regenerating." "It's not just regenerating," Vander said, his voice shaking. "It's calling to something, a signal, one I can't trace. It's like the ship is reaching out, trying to find something or someone." Lyra took a step back, the realization sinking in. The Watcher. It's still alive. Somewhere inside that ship, there's something that wants us, and it's not going to let us escape. Chapter 7. The Void Stirs. In the hours that followed, the Erasmus began to experience strange malfunctions. First, it was small things. Lights flickering, odd noises from the engines. Then, the comm system began to pick up static interference, and a deep, guttural hum reverberated through the ship, as if from the very depths of space. "Get a fix on the signal," Jax ordered, his mind racing. "Whatever's out there, we need to find it and stop it. Now." Lyra worked quickly, her fingers flying across the console. "It's coming from a nearby asteroid field, but there's something odd about it. It's not a natural phenomenon." Before Jax could respond, the ship lurched. The warning lights flashed red. "We're being pulled in," Vander shouted, his voice panicked. "The gravitational field is changing. Something's altering the field around us." Jax clenched his fists, trying to think quickly. The Erasmus was being dragged toward the asteroid field, and whatever awaited them there was not natural. It was the Watcher's doing. "We're heading straight into the eye of the storm," Jax muttered. "Brace for impact." Chapter 8. Into the Abyss. The asteroid field was a chaotic mess of rocks and debris, some the size of cities. The Erasmus drifted through the field, its course altered by the invisible force at work. Each collision with an asteroid jarred the ship, and every moment felt like it could be their last. But then something changed. The stars around them began to dim, and the sky itself seemed to close in. The gravitational pull became stronger, and a vast shadow loomed ahead. "We're entering something huge," Lyra said, her voice trembling. In the distance, a massive spherical structure emerged from the darkness, a structure so vast it seemed to stretch on forever. It was alive, like a twisting organic maze, a pulsating, breathing entity that seemed to draw everything toward it. Jax's voice was barely a whisper. "The Watcher! It's alive!" The Erasmus was now in the grip of something far more terrifying than the ancient ship. It was clear now that the Watcher wasn't a machine at all. It was a sentient being, one that had existed in the dark corners of space for millennia, and it had been waiting for them. Chapter 9. The Heart of the Void. The ship came to a sudden halt, its engines failing to respond as the crew struggled to regain control. The massive structure ahead of them pulsed with energy, and the hum grew louder, vibrating through the hull. "What is that thing?" Vander asked, his eyes wide with fear. Jax stared at the structure. "That's no ship, that's a prison." A voice echoed through the Erasmus, deep and cold, reverberating from every corner of the ship. "You have entered my domain, and now you will never leave." The walls shook violently and the temperature inside the ship plummeted. The crew was thrown off balance as a blinding light enveloped them. The air became thick with an oppressive force, an unseen presence that wrapped around them, suffocating them. Jax gripped the control panel, his breath coming in short, shallow gasps. "We need to break free. We need to destroy it before it consumes us all." But as he looked out the viewports, he realized the truth. They weren't in control anymore. The Watcher had claimed them, and now it was time to pay the price. Chapter 10. The Price of Knowledge. The eerie silence hung heavily over the Erasmus. The damage was done. The Watcher had been destroyed, or so they thought. Its shattered remnants lay scattered throughout the ship, yet there was a deep, unsettling stillness in the air, as if something more insidious was waiting. The crew, though victorious, felt the weight of the battle in every breath. Their hands still trembled from the intensity, their minds fogged with the aftershocks of the Watcher's influence. Jack stood at the bridge, staring out into the vastness of space. The stars seemed distant, almost unreachable, and for the first time since this all began, he felt small, trapped in a cosmic web far beyond his control. They had won a battle, yes, but the war, that was far from over. "We've got to leave," Lyra's voice broke through the tension. Her words were sharp, but her eyes were tired. "We've done enough. The longer we stay here, the more the ship twists against us. Whatever's left in the wreckage of the Watcher, It's not gone. It's waiting. Jax turned to her, his expression hardened. We can't just leave, Lyra, not yet. What do you mean, she asked, raising an eyebrow. The ship is dead. We've neutralized it. The Watcher was a prison, Jax replied, his voice low. A prison built around something far worse than we've encountered. I think we've only scratched the surface. Vander entered the bridge, his face pale and eyes wide. Captain, I found something. Something that... I don't know how to explain it. Jax and Lyra turned to him, their curiosity piqued. What is it? Jax asked. Vander's hand shook slightly as he tapped a few keys on the control panel. A hologram flickered to life, showing the dark, jagged remains of the ship they had destroyed. But now a small glowing dot began to pulse within the wreckage. The signal was faint, but unmistakable. This wasn't part of the Watcher. It's something alive. Alive, Lyra echoed, her voice tense. Not just alive, Vander continued, his voice lowering. I think it's calling us. A sudden chill gripped the room. The presence of the Watcher had been bad enough, but this was something more. Chapter 11. The voice of the void. Jax stood at the command center, the image of the glowing dot from the wreckage still flickering on the screen. Vander was working feverishly to analyze it, his brow furrowed in concentration. There's something moving, Vander muttered. It's shifting like it's alive and trying to communicate. We need to get out of here, Lyra said urgently. This is beyond us. Whatever's in that wreckage, it's not just a ship. It's something worse. Something that has been waiting for centuries. Jax gripped the edge of the console, his mind racing. He could feel the pull of the unknown, an insatiable curiosity that had led them to this point. It was a hunger for knowledge, yes, but it was a dangerous one. The darkness of the void was calling them, and they couldn't turn back now. We need to know what we're dealing with, Jax said, his voice hardening. We can't just leave it be. Lyra shot him a concerned look. And if it's worse than the Watcher, what then? We fight, we always fight. The ship shuddered beneath them, and the entire crew staggered as the vibrations intensified. The signal was growing stronger, more insistent. It felt like the Erasmus was being drawn toward the wreckage, like something was reaching out, pulling them in. Captain, we can't hold the ship together much longer, Vander said, his voice edged with panic. If we don't leave now, we may never make it out. Jax didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the image of the signal, the last piece of the Watcher, pulsing like a heartbeat. A terrible decision loomed in front of him. But he knew that if they turned away now, they would never understand the true nature of what had happened here. Take us in, Jax ordered, his voice cold and determined. Chapter 12. Into the abyss, the Erasmus drifted slowly toward the wreckage, the ship's systems on the brink of collapse. The crew had seen firsthand how the Watcher could manipulate space and reality, but now they were heading into its very heart. The wreckage had become a blackened, twisted shell, yet something pulsed at its center, a beacon that called to them, louder with every passing moment. As the ship drew closer, the surroundings grew darker. The stars outside faded into shadow, the void closing in around them. It felt as though they were descending into the belly of some ancient, hungry creature. The air grew thick, suffocating, and the light inside the Erasmus flickered wildly, casting unsettling shadows across the walls. Can anyone else feel that? Lyra asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jax didn't answer. He could feel it too, the oppressive weight of the void pressing down on them, the Watcher's influence. Still hanging in the air like a poison, the silence was deafening, and yet there was an underlying hum, an electric pulse, rhythmic and steady, as if the ship itself was breathing. Captain, Vander's voice broke through, urgent. I'm getting strange readings. The wreckage isn't just a ship, it's a structure, a monument. It's made of organic material, not metal. It's alive. Jax's heart raced. Alive? He echoed, incredulous. I don't know how to explain it, Vander continued, but this thing, it's like it's been waiting for us. As they approached, the ship began to pulse, and the entire hull of the Erasmus groaned under the strain. The crew could feel the pull now, not just a gravitational force, but a mental one. It was as though the ship was communicating with them, its presence reverberating through their minds. A voice, low and deep, echoed in their thoughts. "Welcome, travelers. You have come to bear witness to the last of the ancients." The voice was not one they could hear with their ears. It was inside them, like a whisper in the back of their minds. It was the voice of the ship, or something that controlled it. And it wasn't finished with them. Chapter 13. The Last Ancients. The atmosphere inside the Erasmus grew heavier. The walls seemed to shift and tremble as the ship inched closer to the wreckage. Jax, Lyra, and Vander gathered around the central console, the hologram showing a grotesque, towering structure at the center of the wreckage, a temple made of the same pulsating organic material. "That's no ship," Jax said, his voice tight. "That's a temple." Lyra looked at him, fear in her eyes. "A temple to what?" "I don't know," Jax replied, "but we're about to find out." The voice grew louder in their minds. "You seek knowledge, but it is a curse. The price of knowing is your soul. The last of the ancients has been awakened. Will you continue? Will you bear the weight of the truth?" The room seemed to tremble. Around them, the light flickering violently. Something ancient and evil was awakening within the wreckage. "Are we prepared for this?" Lyra asked, her voice low. Jax didn't answer at first. He didn't know if they were prepared. But they had come this far. "We have no choice," he said finally. "We need to know what's out there, what we're dealing with." And then, with a final lurch, the Erasmus crossed the threshold. The ship entered the wreckage, into the heart of the temple. And as the crew stepped forward, they knew they were no longer in control. Something far older than themselves was about to reveal its secrets. Chapter 14. The Gate of the Ancients. The moment the Erasmus crossed into the heart of the wreckage, everything changed. The space outside the ship vanished, replaced by a swirling void of shifting shadows and pulsating energy. It was as if they had stepped beyond reality itself. Jax, Lyra, and Vander stood frozen on the bridge, staring at the impossible scene before them. What should have been a derelict, lifeless ruin was anything but. The twisted remains of the Watcher had reformed into something new, an opening, a massive structure resembling an ancient gateway. Runes of unknown origin glowed across its obsidian surface, shifting in and out of existence like ghosts caught between dimensions. A deep thrum vibrated through the ship, resonating in their bones. The voice returned, louder this time, more insistent. "You stand at the threshold. The last of the ancients remains. Will you enter?" Jax exchanged glances with Lyra and Vander. There was no turning back now. "Prepare an expedition," Jax ordered. "We're going in." Chapter 15. The Chamber of Echoes. The air inside the temple was thick, oppressive, carrying the weight of centuries. As the crew of the Erasmus stepped cautiously onto the organic metal hybrid flooring, their suits' sensors flickered erratically, unable to properly process the strange energies saturating the space. The walls pulsed like a living entity, shifting between solid and translucent, revealing glimpses of something moving within. Shadows twisted unnaturally, their movements almost sentient. "This place," Lyra whispered. "It's alive." "Not alive," Vander corrected, scanning the walls with his datapad. "It's remembering." Jax turned toward him. "Remembering what?" Vander hesitated before answering. "Us, or something like us. It's scanning us, learning." Before anyone could respond, the runes along the chamber walls flared to life, casting an eerie crimson glow. A sudden inhuman whisper echoed all around them. Dozens of overlapping voices speaking in a language older than time. Then the whispers stopped, and a single voice, cold, commanding, spoke. "The last trial begins." A massive doorway at the end of the chamber groaned open, revealing a stairway descending into the darkness. Jax clenched his jaw. They had already gone too far to turn back now. "Let's move." Chapter 16. The Last of the Ancients. The descent felt endless. The deeper they went, the more reality itself seemed to warp. Time lost meaning. The walls of the temple breathed around them. And then, without warning, the stairs ended, opening into a vast cathedral-like chamber. At the center, suspended within an enormous obsidian monolith, was a figure. It was humanoid, but wrong. Its elongated body pulsed with veins of pure energy, its translucent skin revealing an intricate network of circuitry and something organic. The being's eyes were closed, its face eerily serene, as if in deep sleep. "The last ancient," Vander murmured, his voice barely audible. Lyra reached out, fingers hovering near the monolith. "It's still alive." As if in response, the being's eyes snapped open. A shockwave of pure force erupted outward, sending the crew reeling. The temple trembled violently, the walls pulsing in chaotic rhythms. A voice, not from speakers, not from comms, but from inside their minds, spoke. "You are not the first to stand before me, but you may be the last." The monolith cracked. The ancient moved. Jax raised his weapon, but deep down he knew bullets wouldn't save them now. Chapter 16. The Last of the Ancients. The descent felt endless. The deeper they went, the more reality itself seemed to warp. Time lost meaning. The walls of the temple breathed around them. And then, without warning, the stairs ended, opening into a vast cathedral-like chamber. At the center, suspended within an enormous obsidian monolith, was a figure. It was humanoid, but wrong. Its elongated body pulsed with veins of pure energy, its translucent skin revealing an intricate network of circuitry and something organic. The being's eyes were closed, its face eerily serene, as if in deep sleep. "The last ancient," Vander murmured, his voice barely audible. Lyra reached out, fingers hovering near the monolith. "It's still alive." As if in response, the being's eyes snapped open. A shockwave of pure force erupted outward, sending the crew reeling. The temple trembled violently, the walls pulsing in chaotic rhythms. A voice, not from speakers, not from comms, but from inside their minds, spoke. "You are not the first to stand before me, but you may be the last." The monolith cracked. The ancient moved. Jax raised his weapon, but deep down he knew bullets wouldn't save them now. Chapter 17. The Awakening of the Forgotten. The Erasmus trembled as the monolith split apart, releasing a shock wave of ancient energy that crackled through the air like a living storm. The ancient, no longer bound, floated above the shattered remains of its prison. Its body shimmered between forms, shifting between humanoid and something more alien, more ethereal. Jax gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stand firm. "Identify yourself." The being's gaze landed on him, and for a moment Jax felt as if he were being peeled apart. Every memory, every thought laid bare before an intelligence far beyond his comprehension. "Names mean nothing in the void. I am the last, and you are the first to hear my words in 1,000 lifetimes." The voice was not spoken aloud. It was imprinted directly into their minds, a flood of layered voices, some ancient, some painfully human. Vander swallowed hard. The Watcher. This place. "What is it?" The ancient tilted its head. The air grew heavier, darker, colder. "The Watchers were my jailers. They were once like you, seekers, explorers. They found what should have remained buried. They unlocked what was meant to stay sealed, and they paid the price." The chamber around them flickered. The very fabric of reality rippled. Jack saw flashes of something. A world consumed by darkness, ships burning in the void, empires collapsing in the blink of an eye. And then he saw them. Towering figures, their bodies encased in armor made of shifting black light, eyes like dying stars. The true Watchers. They were the first to reach beyond the edge of the abyss. They saw what lay beyond the void. And when saw them back, they tried to unmake it. The room pulsed violently. They failed. Chapter 18. The choice. The chamber hummed with an eerie stillness, broken only by the pulsating glow of the ancient console. Jack stared at it, his mind a battlefield of conflicting thoughts. The Erasmus crew had uncovered the last weapon of a forgotten war, a being that was neither savior nor destroyer, only a remnant of a conflict that had never truly ended. "Unlock the gate, and I will finish what was started." The ancient's words lingered like an echo in Jax's skull. It spoke of the Watchers, of something lurking beyond the abyss, something that had seen them. And yet, the Watchers had failed. They had built this tomb not to unleash the weapon, but to bury it. Vander's voice broke the silence. "Jax, we have no idea what we're dealing with." His fingers gripped his datapad so tightly that his knuckles went white. If they sealed it away, there was a reason. Lyra stood at Jax's side, her expression unreadable. And what if that reason was fear, she asked. What if they knew this thing could stop whatever's out there, but they weren't willing? To pay the price? Jax turned to face her. And what if they were right? The tension between them thickened. Lyra's gaze burned with defiance, but beneath it, there was doubt. Even she couldn't deny the weight of the choice before them. The ancient regarded them silently, its shifting form a reflection of the uncertainty in the room. Then it spoke again. To do nothing is still a choice. The void has already awakened. If you do not act, it will come and it will not stop. A deep vibration rolled through the chamber, the walls breathing with unseen energy. The entire temple was alive, waiting. Jax turned back to the console. His reflection flickered in the glassy surface. His own face, but overlaid with something else, something older. Vander took a step forward, desperation in his voice. Jax, listen to me. We're explorers, not gods. This is bigger than us. If we open that gate, we can't control what comes through. We can't take that back. Jax clenched his fists. He knew that. He had spent his life trying to outthink impossible situations, trying to survive in a universe that had no mercy. But this wasn't just about survival. It was about what came next. Jax exhaled slowly, the decision solidifying in his mind. Didn't come all this way just to turn back, he said. He reached forward and activated the console. Chapter 19. The gate opens. The temple screamed. A pulse of blinding light exploded outward from the console, racing across the walls like wildfire. Symbols that had been dormant for untold centuries ignited in golden fire, illuminating the vast chamber in a storm of radiant energy. The very air vibrated, thick with power, as if the universe itself was reacting to what they had done. Vander staggered back. Oh, hell! The floor beneath them shifted. Deep within the temple's core, something massive groaned to life. The runes above them twisted, changing, becoming something new, something active. And then the wall at the far end of the chamber melted away, revealing a vast expanse beyond, a dark, starless void stretching into infinity. It was not space. It was not sky. It was a gateway, and from the other side something moved. Jax's breath caught in his throat. It was impossible to tell whether the thing beyond the gate had a form, whether it had mass or meaning, in a way the human mind could comprehend. It was a shifting absence, a hole in the fabric of existence itself. And it was awakening. It has seen us, the ancient whispered. A sound, deeper than thought, older than time, reverberated through the chamber. A single immense breath, and then a hand reached through the gate. Not flesh, not metal, not anything that should exist. It was a shape, a concept, a presence that twisted the very laws of reality around it. The entire temple shook. The Erasmus's systems exploded into chaos, alarms blaring. Their comms crackled with static. Or was it whispers? Jax forced himself to move. Shut it down! Lyra's fingers flew over the controls. I can't, it's in override. We started the sequence, there's no stopping it now. The ancient lifted its gaze toward the darkness. It has begun. The void shuddered, responded. And then, the rest of it started coming through. Chapter 20. The Collapse. The Erasmus's hull vibrated with a frequency Jax had never felt before, like the ship itself was screaming. The gate had become a wound in reality, stretching open wider and wider, consuming the chamber and everything inside it. The thing beyond the threshold moved with an incomprehensible slowness, its form ever shifting, like a silhouette cast by a light that did not exist. Its massive hand twisted through the breach, fingers unraveling into tendrils that flickered between dimensions, bending space and time around them. Jax's instincts screamed to run, but his body refused to move. It was more than fear. It was gravity, a pull towards something ancient, something infinite. His breath hitched as the whispers grew louder, an overwhelming presence pressing into his mind. Then, "Look away!" The ancient's command cut through the storm of thought like a blade. Jax staggered back, eyes snapping away from the abyss. Vander wasn't so lucky. He stood frozen, mouth slightly open, his pupils dilated like twin voids. "Vander!" Jax lunged forward, grabbing him by the collar and ripping him away from the gate's pull. Vander gasped as if surfacing from deep water. What? His voice was hoarse, hollow, like he'd seen something he wasn't meant to. Jax didn't answer. He turned to Lyra, who was struggling against the ship's failing gravity stabilizers. "We need an exit now!" She was already on it, her fingers flying over her wrist console. "Erasmus, emergency retrieval protocol. Lock on to our signals and prepare for warp out." The ship's AI responded in a fractured voice, the interference nearly overwhelming its systems. "Command acknowledged. Systems failing. Retrieving." The ancient stood before the gate, its shifting form solidifying. For the first time, it turned to Jax, its burning eyes locking onto him with an intensity that sent ice down his spine. "I was forged for this purpose. I will not fail." Jax hesitated. "You're going to fight it?" "I was never meant to be free, Captain. I was meant to be used." The temple walls fractured as the void expanded, reality peeling apart in jagged, impossible spirals. The stars outside the chamber seemed to bend, distorting like reflections in shattered glass. Jax clenched his fists. Every instinct told him to get the hell out, but Jax! Lyra grabbed him, yanking him backward just as a surge of pure darkness lashed out from the gate, cutting through the air where he had stood. The impact sent them both sprawling across the crumbling platform. The ancient lifted its arms, and for the first time its form burned with golden light. Not like the fire of a star, but something older, something designed. Go, and then it stepped into the void. The darkness recoiled, the abyss fought back. A blinding explosion of energy erupted from the chamber, tearing through the structure. The force hit Jax like a tidal wave, his vision reduced to pure white. His last thought before everything vanished was whether they had won, or only delayed the inevitable. Chapter 21. Aftermath. Jax's first sensation was sound, a distant hum, rhythmic and steady. The Erasmus. He opened his eyes. The ceiling above him was dimly lit, sterile, the med bay. A dull ache settled into his muscles, exhaustion weighing him, down like gravity had doubled. He turned his head, blinking away the haze. Lyra sat nearby, arms crossed, her gaze distant. Vander stood near the console running diagnostic scans, though his posture was rigid, wrong. Jax cleared his throat. "What happened?" Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. The ancient, it stayed behind. Images flooded Jax's mind, the gate, the impossible darkness, the thing trying to emerge. The ancient had chosen to face it alone. Vander spoke without looking up. The temple collapsed, the gates gone, whatever was on the other side. He shook his head. "I don't know if it's trapped or if it just stopped trying." A silence stretched between them. Jax could still feel it, that presence lingering in the back of his mind like an unfinished sentence. He swung his legs over the side of the cot. "Status of the Erasmus?" Lyra exhaled. "Structural damage. Nav systems are barely functional. We're limping, but we're alive." Jax flexed his fingers. He was alive. They were alive. But something felt wrong. He glanced at Vander. His friend's hands were still shaking. "You saw something." Jack said carefully. Vander's jaw tightened. He didn't answer right away. Then, it saw me back. A chill ran down Jax's spine. Vander turned to face them, his expression haunted. We left the gate behind, but that thing, it knows we're here now. Jax's throat tightened. The mission had been about discovery, about uncovering lost secrets. But now they had done something. At least, they had drawn attention. For better or worse, the void was no longer just watching. It was waiting. Jax took a slow breath, his decision already made. He stood. Prep the ship. Lyra frowned. You're not suggesting we're not done, Jack said, his voice steady. We need to understand what we woke up, because if Vander's right, if it knows us now. His gaze drifted to the viewport. The stars outside seemed darker somehow, as if a shadow lingered just beyond sight. Then this isn't over. Lyra and Vander exchanged uneasy glances. Neither argued, because they all felt it. The war that had been buried was stirring again, and this time there would be no second chances. The end. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Let me know what ideas you would like the next story to be about. Please leave a thumbs up, share, subscribe, comment.